Yes, my people. This is episode 3 of the Outspoken Podcast. I am your host, Annotate, joined by my co-host.
Just Naeem, guys. Welcome. Episode 3 of the podcast. Yeah? So you guys can call me Naeem, like we've always said. Episode 3, guys.
That's like his thing now. He's going to do that every single week.
One, I'm going to say it. And we're going to enjoy it. And let's move on, my bro.
Oh, we're gonna enjoy it. You're forcing our audience to enjoy it. You're giving them no choice but to enjoy it.
I'm enforcing enjoyment into their lives.
What if they don't enjoy it?
Well, then...
Yeah.
Well, this is outspoken, innit? So I'm outspoken.
That's what I thought.
About my name.
Speechless. He doesn't really know what to say about that. Last week we had the amazing opportunity of being joined by Patchy. The discussion was incredible. We spoke about youth culture, issues revolving around the youth, things that they're facing, the difficulties they're dealing with on a daily basis, racism against black males specifically, as well as stereotypes and stigmatization. And it was just an incredible discussion. We really enjoyed having Patchy on board. And this week we have another amazing guest. Who do we have?
Bro, this person has been on 2 TED Talks.
Wow.
This person has created their own book with 3 other friends called The Fly Guide to University.
Wow.
Yeah, guys, welcome Suhaiymah Manzoor-Khan.
Hi, thank you for having me, guys. Yeah, I'm just blown away that you said my name right. No,
you got it right. Yeah,
all right.
And he put a nice little specific mention of it. The way he said it was in a particular way that was very nice.
Appreciate
I like
that.
I like that. He doesn't normally say my name that nicely. That's why I was moved by that.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, I call him Lee Arm.
It's great to have you on board. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us on the Outspoken Podcast. Introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, so I am Suhaiymah. Online I go as The Brown Hijabi. I have a blog, thebrownhijabi.com, and generally what I do is write and speak and perform poetry about race, gender, Islamophobia, and trying to, I guess, raise awareness of like the politics behind so much of what is talked about in non-political ways. So that's kind of what I would say. It's in a way like I'm an educator, I like to think.
No, I would agree. From hearing your poetry and the discussions that you've had in these places such as TED Talk, which I'm going to ask you about right now. I mean, how did it feel to be invited to a TED Talk? I mean, most people reach out and ask, can I get on the TED Talk? But I mean, you were actually invited. How did that feel?
Yeah, it was interesting. It was really weird because it makes you think that you must have something. Like, it's this awkward thing of like, do I have something worthwhile saying? And I had previously pitched to TEDx, like at a uni or something, and they'd been like, yeah, your idea's okay, but not what we're looking for. Whereas this time around, it was after I had done a poem at the Roundhouse Poetry Slam, and it had gone kind of semi-viral, and I think these guys had seen it. And they'd said, well, the topic of this TEDx is women, are the theme, and do you want to talk? And I think the thing that I felt quite weird about was that you're supposed to be like an expert in something, or the thing that you talk about. And I was like just fresh out of uni, and I was like, what am I an expert in? Like, I'm not, But then I realized that the thing that I do know so much more about than people who often talk about it is being a Muslim woman. Yeah. And it was like, we're not ever seen as sources of knowledge ourselves about our experiences. So you'll get the media, politicians, everyone else talking about Muslim women, but not us. So my whole talk was about that. And it was like, everyone says they care about us and they're talking about forced marriage, FGM, hijab, but they're not talking about our everyday realities, Islamophobia, racism, sexism. So yeah, and in the end, it was really, really exciting. And like, I think I don't know, it felt quite valuable to be able to do that in a public platform.
Yeah. That's amazing. I've listened to the TED Talk myself, and I really enjoyed it. I felt it was very beneficial, and I recommend that.
Very empowering as well.
Yeah, I recommend everyone go and listen to that. It's on YouTube, not hard to find. No. Just type in Suhaiymah Manzoor-Khan, and it should come up. How was the experience overall? How were the audience to you? How did they respond to what you were saying? Were they receptive or?
Yeah, it was interesting because I felt quite nervous that my message wasn't going to necessarily like land that well, because I was kind of asking the audience to confront their own prejudices, basically. And it was interesting because I remember one woman at the end came up to me and she said, to be honest with you, I felt really uncomfortable in your talk, but it really made me think. And I appreciated that much more than any like praise. Like if someone had been like, that was amazing, because actually getting someone to be okay with confronting the possibility that they don't know something entirely in the way that they thought they knew it is the only space I think from which transformation is made possible, because it's a space of possibility. It's like, wow, I'm not sure about that. It made me feel weird. So it was this weird thing where I didn't get like this loads and loads of praise, but actually, more importantly for me, I think it was quite unsettling. And that's something I'm trying to embrace more and more, is like not necessarily feeling the ego boost of like a big round of applause, but instead trying to like move somewhere with people.
There's tackling those important issues, isn't it? I mean, it reminds me of this book, Why I'm No Longer Talking to White People About Race. The author of this book addresses things in a similar fashion regarding race. And it's interesting to see how people are so unsettled, as you mentioned, by this discussion. She speaks about this quite thoroughly in the book, and I haven't finished it, but I'm really enjoying it. I'm very, very much engrossed. And it's one of those books where when you pick up and you start reading it, you don't want to put it down. I was having a conversation recently with a white colleague of mine who is actually reading the book, and she said it's really interesting to delve into and discover some of these issues that exist that I had no clue about. And I don't want to put the book down. When I'm on my way, she's saying when I'm on my way to work, I just want to continue reading. Because that's how interesting and intriguing it is. And it's very educational. And like yourself, that's what I feel I get when I listen to the things that you say, what you speak about, and also through your poetry. So for me, I think you're winning.
Appreciate that.
And on the Outspoken Podcast, we only have winners. No, I'm just kidding. Everyone's a winner. Everyone is a winner in some way or another. But so can you tell us a little bit about the fact that you performed on TED as well? I mean, we know you had the talk, but you also had a performance. What was that like, and how did that come about?
Yes, actually, this was quite different. This was like just through poetry connections. Somebody said we're doing a TEDx, so it was TEDx Youth. So it was aimed at, I think, like under 20 something, and they were just like, to make it a bit more exciting, it's talks, but it's also like poems and like musical performances and stuff. And it was in Birmingham, and obviously it's quite like a big like Muslim population there, and I think they were just like, it would be really nice to have like a relatable poet do something. And so I thought, quite like with that, I felt like it had to be something, again, important, but my interest this time was not to unsettle people, but actually to validate people, because I think with young people, I'm much more interested in like saying, you are seen, I see you, I believe you, and you have value. And so it was actually a very different experience, and in some ways like a lot more moving for me, because it was like creating a connection with young people in the audience who were like, thank you for that, like you saw me. So that it was very different now I think about it. And
Well, someone actually came up to you and said that to you, or was it?
Yeah, because I was quite. The poem was about kind of like it was about Muslim women, but in a very different way, and it was like that we should kind of all the multifaceted ways in which you can be a Muslim woman, but there's all these other people, politicians, media, other Muslims, men telling you how to be a Muslim woman, and so it was kind of just saying, no one gets to decide that. And so I think it was, I remember quite a few girls were just like I feel seen by that, and that means a lot to me.
That's amazing. That's absolutely amazing.
I imagine you get quite a good amount of Muslim girls coming up to you and asking you questions regarding your poetry. Do you get a lot of non-Muslim women coming over to you and asking you for a greater understanding behind what you're doing as well?
Yeah, so I think like you kind of suggested there, it's kind of different type of question, less about like it's less advice and more like, as you say, understanding. So like, I want to learn more about what you said there. How can I find out more about that? And I think also trying to, for a lot of women who aren't Muslim and would sort of say that they're feminists, I think they're aware that maybe a lot of ways in which they're complicit in the oppression of Muslim women. Yeah. So a lot of times they'll be trying to ask like, how can I try and understand better my own prejudices and that kind of thing, which I respect. I respect that a lot.
I respect that a lot as well. I think it's good to acknowledge that these things exist as opposed to just trying to sweep them under the carpet.
And also I think being brave enough to realize it's not a moral issue. It's not like you're a bad person. It's like we've all been socialized and learned all these things. So and that's fine.
That's incredible. I wanna backtrack a little bit. Yeah. I wanted to ask you about the Roundhouse Poetry Slam. Did you win?
No, I didn't win.
Why not? Why not? Somebody please explain this injustice.
That's really kind. No, I came second, but I really felt, honestly, because that moment, that poem for me was so monumental in my life that I honestly feel like that I was the winner, like to myself. Do you know what I mean? Because it was just like, since then, it gave me a platform for a lot of stuff that I was already writing, but it was like, oh, people think I have something important to say now. And it was just, I really did feel like it was meant to be. Do you know what I mean? I was like, that was the moment at which, honestly, it sounds so extra to say, but it really did change my life because I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now if I hadn't done that poem.
Yeah. Because I remember when it was going around. Because I remember some people putting snippets and stuff up on social media, on Instagram and on Twitter and stuff like that as well. When I saw it specifically, I think I saw it because it was on 2017.
Yeah,
2017, wasn't it?
Yeah,
2017 when I saw it. I remember when it just went straight viral, and everyone was like, "This is it." She's saying what. She's not saying like what everyone wants to hear, but she's saying what's real.
Or a lot of people said saying what they felt,
exactly,
right?
what
So
they
it's like
felt.
saying what people
You know what I mean?
want to say.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's like when we talk about like the voice of the voiceless. That's basically what it was like. Like what you were saying was some stuff that people were holding back in the back of their head. But because of the society and stuff we live in right now, they can't say it. Yeah, and because you said it, they were just like, whoa.
It was things. I think it was something that needed to be addressed.
Exactly.
And you brought it to the forefront and allowed other people to then start having discussions about this, or being more confident about delivering these messages through their own work. Especially poetry. I feel poetry is an amazing forum to express yourself 100%. And deliver a message regarding a particular issue that you feel strongly about.
Yeah, it's like when you're it's like today when you're listening to like a lecture or something like that. You can get lost easily.
Right.
Yeah, but when you listen to poetry, it's like it has that rhythm and that flow with it. Even though there's no music or anything like that in the background, it's just the way the words just play.
I think also because it's got that emotion to it,
Exactly.
right? Because actually, and funny you say that, because that poem I wrote at the same time that I was writing my master's dissertation. Obviously, like one person's going to read that dissertation. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But actually, the message is exactly the same. But so many people could access that poem, and because it had the emotional element, they could relate to it.
Yeah.
And I was like, that dissertation is so dry. You know what I mean? Like no one's going to read that. So I think it is. It has. It's a different type of power.
That's sick. You took your dissertation and turned it into a poem.
In a way, it's
That's
a similar
amazing,
message.
man.
I didn't do it deliberately.
No, but like it's like you were writing the dissertation and you were going through it, and then the idea just went from this, took it, crushed it, and you were like
condensed it down.
in a way.
Epic poem.
Exactly.
That's gone viral.
Just gonna have to write another dissertation to write a good poem.
Masters.
Yeah.
That's amazing. What are you studying?
So I did.
Or what were you studying?
I did it in post-colonial studies. So it sounds a bit rogue, but it's just like trying to understand the world as it is today and how that is linked to the histories of violence and oppression through colonialism.
Deep stuff, man. Deep stuff. I mean, I'm someone that speaks quite openly about oppression as well. A lot of my poetry, the spaces I go into, I get different types of people coming over to me, Muslim and non-Muslim, and I get different responses. Usually from Muslims, I'll hear stuff like, it's nice to hear someone being open enough to speak about these issues, and make other people that are maybe not aware of them aware of them. And I get non-Muslims sometimes coming up to me and saying, I really didn't know that this issue was so prevalent, so thank you for educating me on that. And I think that is one of the beautiful things about poetry and like you mentioned, expression. When you feel strongly about something, you can move people, you can touch people, and that's why I love poetry. To be quite frankly
I completely agree with that.
So last week we touched on prejudices facing young people. We mainly spoke about stigma against young black males, the problems with stop and search and things of that nature. This week I wanted to ask you, because you're someone that publicly addresses the negative impacts of stereotypes and stigmatization, what would you say to young people faced with prejudices that stem from race or religious identity?
So I think that the urge a lot of times when you're faced with stereotypes is to disprove them, and it's like to break them and to say, I'm not what you think I am. But actually my advice would be, don't waste your time doing that, because I it's kind of like stereotypes aren't there to be broken, they are there to break you, and they actually will, because they will limit you. And the function, I think what's more important than saying, not all Muslims are bad, not all Muslim women are oppressed, is to say, why does that idea even exist in the first place?
Yeah.
And so my advice would be because the power comes back to you when you start questioning the stereotype instead, and you say, what is the function? Because what you find is that all these stereotypes actually have really political functions, by which I mean, so saying all Muslims are bad isn't just a mean thing. It's not just like a disadvantaging Muslims. It does all of that, yeah. But more than that, it actually hides and obscures what causes violence like terrorism, right? So you just say, oh, it's because Muslims are bad. And you don't have to say, actually, maybe the state has some accountability here, maybe context of racial profiling, surveillance and foreign policy and all of that. And it's the same thing. So if you say Muslim women are oppressed, if I go, no, I'm not oppressed, actually much more powerful to say, why is it useful to you to think that I am oppressed?
Yeah.
What does that allow you to do? And it allows you to do a lot of stuff, turns out. So that my advice is that don't waste your time, because also you give power to the stereotype when you kind of give it that power over you to kind of spend your life trying to disprove it. That's not going to gain you humanity.
Yeah, because people play on those stereotypes, isn't it? And they use it as a means to prove like certain points. When it came to, like, for example, like Donald Trump, yeah, when he said we want to ban all Muslims because Muslims are the root problem
Exactly.
in America.
Exactly.
And everyone who supports him would like, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I agree with that man because he said it.
It's
Yeah.
that sheep mentality.
Exactly. It's that sheep mentality. And when sheep just start to follow, this is how it just spreads and becomes this widespread spectrum of hate.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, because I think also the thing with stereotypes is that what you're basically saying is, because of the way that you look or the way you are, I'm going to link you to a set of behaviors and characteristics.
And
when you do that, you dehumanize. Basically, you say you are less human than me. I'm complex.
They prejudge. They look at you.
Exactly.
So when for example, do you know one of the stereotypes, all black people are violent.
That's something I mentioned in my poem.
Yeah, exactly. All blacks are violent. That's actually the bar.
I have a poem called Writer's Block, and I say about the concept of all blacks being violent and all Muslims being terrorists.
Yeah.
Because that's something that often is associated with black people in gang crime. Obviously, that's in America and Britain. And terrorism is always associated with Muslims, despite the fact that we get Caucasian individuals committing acts of terrorism and atrocities as well. It's crazy the fact that we actually use these definitions of words and associate them to a certain collection of people rather than allowing it to just be mentioned for the act rather than the individual. I mean, if a person commits terrorism, okay, then that person can be deemed a terrorist, but it's not because that person is following a certain methodology or they're following a certain religion.
But that's what they've attached it to, though.
But
That's literally what they attached it to. So when a white man does a act of terrorism, is because he's mentally challenged.
Yeah, of course. But that's the thing, because they're given individual humanity.
Exactly.
And but I think the other thing with terrorism in particular is that, like, it's not actually a word that is used to describe the act of violence. It's used to describe whether we believe that person is human or not. Because we don't call governments terrorists when they drop bombs, because we believe them to be made up of humans. And we don't call white men terrorists. But we call, and the same thing with, like, the way they talk about, like, knife violence in London. I know you guys talked about this before, but it's like that the language that you use, and that's why words are so powerful. And that's probably why we all enjoy poetry, because it's like you can say and re-narrate and control your story.
Yeah, it's amazing. I'm actually currently reading it through this book, and I read the first story. I can't remember the name of the author, but he mentioned something exactly the same as that. Words are powerful. He was talking about this whole idea of people speaking to him and mentioning a phrase from his language without understanding it. And he was saying language is important. Understanding language is important, and understanding difference is important, rather than just assuming that you know something because someone mentioned it to you in passing. For example, he talks about a restaurant. It has a name for something. I can't remember the specific name, but it means pants in his language. But the restaurant has it as a part of the name of their restaurant because they believe it means spices. And he's like, no, it means pants. But this person doesn't want to believe it. But obviously, they didn't do any research. I just thought it was an interesting thing to bring up based on what you just mentioned. Words are powerful, so use your words wisely. You are listening to the Outspoken Podcast. Thank you for joining us, Suhaiymah Manzoor-Khan. Next, I would like to ask you about poetry.
Cool.
Poetry, something that I love, something that I'm sure you love. tell us about why you started doing poetry. What influenced your decision to become a spoken word artist?
Okay, so I'm gonna be quite real with you guys. So I've always enjoyed like watching slam poetry on like YouTube. I never really enjoyed like poetry at school. I was like, that to me that seemed like a completely different thing. And I've always enjoyed writing for myself. Just like for me, that was the best way I could express myself was just through writing. So, but I never shared it. It was just like diaries and stuff. And the reason I did spoken word poetry for the first time is because I was actually really depressed. And the person that I was getting advice from, she said to me, what you need to do is do something. Is there anything that you've always wanted to do but you don't believe that you could do? And I was like, well, you know, I really enjoy watching these videos on YouTube, but like I couldn't do that. And she was like, that's what you're gonna do. And so she found this open mic night, and she was like, yeah, you have to go to this. And I was
the best friend.
I know
ever.
she was. Well, yeah, she was amazing.
Very
And so
motivational individual.
she was just like, you have to. She like found the open mic night, gave me the thing, and she was like, you don't have to tell anyone. So I didn't. I was like top secret. Like went on my own, and I performed and loved it. I was like, this is amazing. And yeah, literally have been performing ever since. So it was, it's quite a good story. It's like one of the few like good stories that I have about something
I think we need friends like that.
Well, she was actually
we
like
need friends like that.
college. She was like the college counselor nurse type person.
yes,
so
yes,
she
yes.
knew she was giving like proper advice.
That's like epic advice. I think
Yeah, you need that.
not many like college counselors do that. Like,
Yeah.
just go do it. Why you
Yeah.
why you just
Why you
waiting?
holding back?
It's like, why you holding back?
It was definitely the push I needed.
You get a certain buzz when you
Yeah.
enter these poetry establishments as well. I'm sure you feel it.
Yeah, and
You
I
know
think
when
like
you
a sense
go
of
in-
community that is
it's-
different
Yeah.
somehow.
It's almost it's hard to explain if you haven't attended a spoken word show. If you're listening, guys, I advise that you attend one of these spoken word events wherever it is in your area, wherever you live. If you have the opportunity, go down and listen to a collection of amazing poets just deliver messages regarding a whole plethora of different topics.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, you will be blown away. So I'm gonna ask you a really, really tough question.
Okay.
Last week our guest, it's not really a question necessarily, but I'm not gonna ask you for a list. Last week our guest, he found a way out of it. Patchy, that's you.
Yeah, Patchy.
Yes, Patchy. But this week we're not gonna let you get out of it.
Yeah.
We
That's
want
cool, that's cool.
you to list 3 poets that you believe are underrated and deserving of more recognition.
Okay. So I don't know if this is like I don't. It's not that they're underrated. It's just that I think they should get even more recognition.
Yeah.
So one is my housemate, Amina Jamar, and she's a really amazing poet, and her poetry is really, really beautiful. Like the imagery is like it's the kind of poetry when I listen to it, I'm like, I can't write like that. That's just different. That's just something that I can't do. So yeah, look her up. She's got some stuff on YouTube. The second one is my very close friend Jamal Mahmood, and his stuff is it's like it is very, very beautiful. It's very like story-like and very very like soft but emotional. I don't know why I'm describing the poems, but yeah,
No,
it's really nice. It's really, really nice. So yeah, look him up too. He has a book, Little Boy Blue. And then the third one, so I was trying to think about this, I was like, oh God. But I think she should get more platforms. Hodan Yusuf. So yeah, she does some really just like very real stuff. And I think the reason I like her poetry is that she's just honest. And she just, sometimes you're just like, actually sometimes what's the way someone is saying something and what they're saying, the honesty just like surpasses everything else, the form, the content, the lyric. You're just like, this is what you're saying. So yeah, look her up too. I think those will be my 3.
Okay.
Those 3, we need to check them out, man.
Yeah, check them
We'll
out.
definitely check them out. Just can you mention them one more time, just so our listeners can.
So Amina Jamar, Jamal Mahmood, and Hodan Yusuf.
Check them out, people. Check them out. They are on Instagram, and Jamal
He's got a book.
has a book. So
Little Boy Blue.
Little Boy Blue. So guys, do check it out and support the poets, man. Support the poetry.
Truly.
Okay, I'm gonna let you ask this one because
this one, yeah.
I've been asking all the tough questions. So I'm gonna let you ask this one because I think this is a really tough question.
Let's do this then. So for Just Rhyme.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, for Just Rhyme. Yes, she already knows. She already knows it's coming.
She already sees it coming. She's like, oh, okay, I know what's coming here. It's gonna be a hard one.
So who would you like to see headline Just Rhyme?
Yeah, so this is really hard because I feel like Just Rhyme is such a. I've only been to one of the Just Rhyme nights, but it was such a specific night. Like I really loved it. I really loved it, but that's why I'm like, how I don't know who. I don't think I know the type of poets who I would advise to headline that, because I think that it's such a good mixture of like genuinely. I remember saying all the open mic quality was incredible. I was like, why is not all the open mics headliners? And also just like it was like both the lyricism, but also the content and the emotion. So I'm just a bit like, I don't know who I know, because I feel like I listen to a lot of like either like quite big slammy stuff or quite like soft stuff. So, but I don't know. I know you guys do a lot of. What I liked is that you all have quite a lot of storytelling. In that sense, I would say, I don't know. Maybe look into Jamal. I think you should look into Jamal.
Yeah.
Okay.
His stuff is very different than some of the stuff that I've seen at Just Rhyme, but he is a storyteller, I would say.
We were, the thing is, we were like, with Just Rhyme, we want a mixture.
Do you know what I mean? I get you.
If the slam poetry,
We
I get you.
appreciate all poetry.
do you know what I mean?
I get you.
We want all poetry.
I get you.
Yeah, Just Rhymes is all about getting those different creatives wherever poetry they're trying to do.
Yeah.
Within any genre they're trying to do, and just push out and see what can they produce with their own art. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Exactly,
I get you.
Exactly. And regarding Just Rhyme, one of the beautiful things that we've decided to implement this year going forward is something called This Is Your Platform Guest.
Okay.
And what that means is that every Just Rhyme event, we're going to allow our audience to choose who they would like to see headline the next Just Rhyme event from the open micers. So whoever on the night is their favorite open micer will in the future go on to headline a Just Rhyme event. For this first one that we've done this coming March 23rd, if you're available, please do come down to Just Rhyme. We have chosen as a team for the first one Faisal Nazir, also known as the Smiling Ack, to be our platform guest. He's a Just Rhyme veteran. He's been to every Just Rhyme event and he's been incredible on the open mic. Delivered some really, really thought-provoking and profound poetry, to be quite frankly honest. And we also have his book on the table with Suhaiymah right there, as you can see. Do pick it up, guys. It's
if you're watching this, Smiling Ack, we love you, bro.
He only paid me a little bit before the show, but
he didn't pay me. Yo, what's going on, bro? Are you paying Annotate, not paying me?
He told me to split it 2 ways, but I decided I need the money. So.
Man, I bought this guy digestives in the morning, bro.
You want me digestives that I've not even had a chance to open yet, but Okay. You are listening to the Outspoken Podcast. I'm your host, Annotate, joined by my co-host, Naeem, and we are sitting with Suhaiymah right now, and we would like to know what inspired you to write a book with 3 friends.
Good question. So 3 years ago, I was with 3 of my friends, and one of them. So we were all women of color studying at Cambridge Uni, and it was a very weird experience because it's a very white environment. It's a very privileged environment, very private schooled environment. We had a lot of like difficulties with that in terms of like the way that other people. What people expect. We talked about stereotypes. This was like what people expected from us, who they expected us to be, whether that's lecturers, whether that's students, not really seeing ourselves reflected in the institution, not feeling like we were fully seen. And so one of us, Delia, who's from the US actually, she said, "You guys should write a book." And for some reason at that time, we were just like, "Yeah, why not?" Because I think we were so heavily involved in just like, you know, raising consciousness on campus, educating and doing campaigns and stuff, that we were like, of course we should write a book. But the weird thing is that we obviously didn't do anything with it. We just sat on this like manuscript that we had for ages. And then after 3 years, we like approached a publisher. They were like, yeah, this sounds cool. And they published it. And yeah, alhamdulillah, it was weird though, because it was like, we wrote this at such a specific time in our lives. And if I wrote it now, so it's kind of about like, it's kind of analysing the situation of what it is to be a woman of colour in higher education. And it's meant to be, to my mind, it's the book I wish that I had when I was 18 years old. So it's like validating in that sense. But then on the other hand, it is educative. And I think if it's not your experience, that you should also read it, because it's going to tell you what a lot of people are experiencing in the world that you're in. And I think that's important, to be empathetic and be humans. Yeah. But yes, it was very, very weird to have it published, because we were like, if we wrote this now, it would probably be we'd probably be a lot more nervous, I think, about like, oh, am I saying this right? Like, whereas at that time we were just like, yeah, this is urgent, this is important, this is how we feel. And and so I think as like a testament to who we were when we were a little bit younger, it's something that I think is really meaningful for me that is out there, because it gives meaning to those experiences that were really hard, and it's like, you know what, actually something really valuable has come out of this, hopefully.
Yeah.
So 2 additional questions.
Mm.
What's the book called?
Yeah, great
and
question.
who is the publisher?
So it's called A Fly Girl's Guide to University, and then it's got a colon, it's got a subtitle, which is Being a Woman of Colour at Institutions of Power and Elitism. So that's title. Publisher is Verve Poetry Press. So they have a website you can go on. So they mainly publish poetry, but this is the first kind of book that they've published, and it's a mixture of, it's got poems in it, it's got memoirs, it's got kind of article type things, and it's just it's quite like easy read because it's a lot of short stuff.
Did you guys sit down, like you all sat down together and wrote it together, or did you split
No.
up? Like,
Yeah, so Delia kind of took charge with editing, and she said, why don't we all just write about 6 chapters, and then if you have any poems, anything else you want to throw in. And the thing is, she knew, and because we all knew from our experiences, that there were going to be so many themes that overlap.
yeah.
So we all wrote our own stuff, and then we just put it together into themes. And it does actually make a lot. It's very cohesive. It's weirdly cohesive. You're like, oh, this kind of does seem like we just spoke to each other and we're like, what you write? Yeah, I'll write that. But yeah, so that's kind of how it works.
And where can I grab this book, because
So,
it sounds very interesting?
Verve Poetry Press have a website, and you can get it online basically. And if I'm doing any more book launches, I'll post it on my like Instagram, Twitter, etc. The Brown Hijabi, and yeah, come to them, and I'll be selling them like physically.
So I want to ask, because obviously Fly is like a separate.
Right. Yeah. So Fly. Yeah. So it's called A Fly Girl's Guide because Fly was the name of the group at uni that was for women of colour. And so it was set up by 4 black women about 2 years before I got there, and they were just like, first off, they were just like, where have you been? They were like, where? I've not seen other, and so it was like a social space. But then I think they realized that actually like it's weird that our experiences are so similar. Let's do something about this. So by the time I got there, it was like for women of color in general, and it was a very inherently political space because it was social, and they were my best friends in that space, but also everything we did was really political. It's like, recently this word like organizer has been going around. I don't know if you see this, like people describe themselves as organizers. So I remember like a few years ago I looked it up because I was like, what is an organizer? I was like, honestly, what are they organizing? And then I did though, I was like, oh my gosh, this is what like women of color have been doing always, and people of color and communities of color, just like, trying to push for the best for their communities, trying to raise awareness, educate, consciousness raise. And I was like, now it's cool to be an organizer, but we were definitely doing that at uni. And I think it was just natural to being friends. It was like, of course, we also need to make sure our experiences are valued in this institution. So we're going to have to also like, advocate for ourselves. So yeah, that was what Fly was. And that's what we mean when we say A Fly Girl's Guide to University.
And you recommend like everyone should just join it?
Definitely, if you're and if you're at a uni where there isn't really a space or a safe space.
Is it only at Cambridge?
Yeah, because those 4 girls set it up.
Yeah.
But I
think they should introduce it everywhere though.
I think definitely. I think everywhere needs a Fly. Like I was at arts uni the other day and talking to some students, and it was like, you guys need this space because actually I think you can feel so isolated and alienated if you're just in your head on your own about it, and you're thinking. I remember just thinking a lot before I found Fly, like, was that racist or was that just me? Like, am I do I deserve to be here, or like is everyone just cleverer than me? Well, actually, it was just that everyone else is so much more confident because they've been told you deserve to be here, you go here, you're special, and you've been told the opposite. So yeah, I think find people, because, and it goes back to the poems and everything we've been saying. Really, I really believe that validating your experiences, finding somebody who says I see you and I believe you, is the first step to being able to like become free, because you can believe in yourself then, and I really do think that's a powerful thing.
You're someone that has been, as you just mentioned, to an esteemed university such as Cambridge. What was your experience like? Did you deal with any difficulties regarding that in terms of stereotypes and things of that nature?
I mean, this is what I've been saying. Like, it was I think we have to remember like why these places are seen as esteemed universities, and the reason that it's seen as that is because it's exclusive and elite. So it's like when people say, "Oh, it's a good neighborhood." What they mean is it's white and it's middle class, and that's the same with this university, right? So what they mean is it's white and it's middle class, and so for me it was obviously there were a lot of good parts, and I what I have to recognize is that I have gained a lot of social capital. So now that I leave, I can say if I can get access to certain spaces because people think, oh, you're a Cambridge graduate, you did it. And I can't ignore that. But I think the onus is on me to disrupt the spaces I get into because of that social capital. Does that make sense? Because on the other hand, my experience there was very alienating. I think particularly because I grew up in Leeds. I went to a state school, and it was very mixed racially. And I just thought that was what the world was like. I was like, oh, cool, yeah, this is normal. And I arrived there, and I was like, they don't know. And I think the big thing was people hadn't met people like me. And so going back to the stereotype thing, what they thought they knew about me was this whole set of assumptions that they had heard in the news, media, politicians, and that they just applied to me. So I never got to be individual first. I never got to be human. And it was the first time, honestly, I remember consciously realizing, oh, they're just seeing this girl who wears a headscarf who's brown. That's it. And I was like, oh, they don't know that I'm Suhaiymah. They don't know anything about me.
Yeah.
And so I think that kind of dehumanization on a big scale was really, really hard, and partly why I was depressed and why I was having such a hard time. Yeah. And then on an institutional level, you know, I was doing history. The history I was learning was like, you know, I did the history of like immigration in Britain, but there was no immigrant women. The history of women in Britain, was no immigrant women. You know, and it's like my history is a history of immigrant women. So how, like, where was I in that history? I did a history of like, what was it, like philosophy of the world or something. And it was like it was men from 5 European countries. Do you know what I mean? You're like, so what? There was no one had thoughts outside of Europe, outside of men, you know? And so it was a very, very skewed understanding of the past. But then when they reinforce that and you learn that and you take that in and you reproduce it, that's where the danger is, because then you reinforce the idea that those people aren't human. They have no history and they currently have no present either.
I agree.
So, yeah.
I can somewhat relate to this idea of stereotypes at university. I mean, I didn't go to somewhere quite as esteemed as
Thank God, to be honest.
But I attended university, London Metropolitan, and I remember myself and a couple of my classmates were from, I guess you could say in the eyes of the people that we were there with, the ghetto. So we came from areas where things were difficult in terms of knife crime and things like that. And I remember us just being written off immediately from the start. We were the outsiders. Nobody wanted to communicate with us. Nobody wanted to know us. Our work was deemed to be poor, even when it was similar to other people. So some of our white counterparts had written, for example, there was one year we wrote a film concept. Well, I wrote it, and it focused on the idea of a woman becoming a Muslim. Like she and this was before I became Muslim myself. So it was the idea of a woman deciding to become Muslim after dealing with some difficulty in her life, and she found that Islam was the right religion for her. And the people in my class were saying that it's problematic. People might perceive it in the wrong way. You're trying to force this notion of Islam being better and so on and so forth. And I wasn't even Muslim at the time. So I was just like, I'm thinking, but this guy, he has a similar idea about Christianity. But because I'm talking about, you know, Islam, it's a problem. And it was just they were always trying to undercut us. A funny story I have actually, I stopped attending university by my third year. Obviously, I finished. But I had some real difficulties in my third year, and I really wanted to go back and redo that year. I asked, and they said no. But I had a friend of mine who faced similar difficulties. We had a really difficult third year, personal circumstances, and he was allowed to go back. And he said he was sitting in class one time, and one of our lecturers that had taught me and taught him mentioned me. For some reason. I have no idea why. He mentioned me and my work, and he was basically insulting me.
Wow.
And my friend actually stood up and he said, look, listen, I don't know what your problem is, but Liam writes stuff better than you. I've read your stuff. Really I've seen the stuff that you read. I've watched some of your films.
This is the lecturer.
This is the lecturer. And like my friend stood up to me and said, look, I've seen some of the stuff you've written. I've seen I've watched some of your films, and I'm telling you now, Liam writes stuff better than you. So rather than insulting him, you just need to leave it alone. And I thought that was amazing. I was blown away. I was like, damn, like somebody actually just stood up in the university class and said straight to the lecturer, look, what you mentioning my boy for, you know what I'm saying?
That's sick, man.
100%.
That's sick. Your stuff is dead. Imagine that. What?
Your stuff ain't even that good, so what are you talking about?
Are you dumb?
But it does reflect, like, you know, whose knowledge is seen as real knowledge and true and good and important, because like, I don't know, it's just making me think of, even when I came to the Just Rhyme event, I had earlier that day, I'd been at this thing like, what was it? It's a playwriting course, and they were like, you know, plays are written by XYZ, and it was obviously like mainly like quite middle class people. And the thing is, I was watching all these poets at Just Rhyme, and I was like, these guys have all the capacity to be amazing storytellers. They are amazing storytellers. And I was like, but which BBC writers' room is going to come talk to them and be like, hey, you guys should write a script for us? And you know, it's that idea of like, as you say, you're already written off because of who you are, where you come from, whatever. But then on the other hand as well, I feel like, I don't know, you tell me because it's your experience, but I feel like there's also this like weird fetishization of being like from the ghetto at uni. And it's like, oh, we all want to like act like we're all poor, and we all want to act like we're all from ends, and we're all, and you know, and it's like, I've seen that at Cambridge, I think, or Oxford, whatever. There was, they had like a party, and the theme was, what was it? It was so bad. It was so bad. It was literally so bad. It was like, I wish I could remember. It was like it was Romans and roadmen, and you can imagine.
Wait, what?
Yeah,
Romans and roadmen.
Yeah, so they were like dressed up as Romans and roadmen. Obviously, everyone who dresses up as a roadman just intensely racist stereotypes. That was it. And so you're just like, wow. So you okay? But it's this thing of like, so we don't actually want you in our space, but we all want to pretend to be you in our space at the same time.
Yeah. Do you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of in America where they do that blackface.
Yeah. Exactly.
And Halloween, and they think it's okay
Exactly.
to actually dress up.
They do that at Oxbridge.
And it disgusts me. I don't think there's anything that disgusts me as much as that in these establishments. I just think it's awful that any person could think that that's ever okay to do.
It's just the fact that they have to justify it. They have to say, no, but it's fine because of X, Y, and Z. And we're just like, no,
there's no justification.
There's no justification with that.
None whatsoever.
Do you know what I mean? And wow, man, I can't believe it. Like, and they do that. They actually sometimes do it at Oxford as well.
They had all sort of mad parties. They had like something called the Oriental Express or something. And then they advertised. They were like, we're looking for East Asian students to just sort of stand around in the party. Yeah, they're just like,
Wow.
I'm serious.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
because so there's a huge misunderstanding
Why is
of.
no one talking about this?
Well, that's the thing. And that's why we try to like really raise awareness about this. But
Exactly.
it's really just seen as okay. At the end of the day, it's like it is okay because you guys aren't human anyway. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, because then you have at the state level, the state also saying, well, you know, British values. There's a report where the government says, sorry, it's quite boring, but I think it's really interesting. The government says like in areas where there's high concentrations of ethnic minorities, they are less likely to develop British values. And the implication is that
I've seen that video that you did.
Right. Okay.
I think I remember when I watched the video, when I was watching your TED talk, it came up.
Right.
It came up with a suggested video, and you did like it was like a march and stuff, right?
I think just because this is like, the point is that we think that Britishness is whiteness and it's innate only to white people. But then so it's like, someone at uni can be intensely racist because actually at the state level too, it's the same idea. It's like, well, yeah, you're not really one of us, and actually you're kind of not human, and we kind of could deport you at any point, and you kind of could be detained at any point. So actually it's just like such a it's like, are you trying to raise awareness to the state? They don't care.
Yeah.
So I think that's when you realize that what happens at uni, what happens at work, what happens, like we have to like work together to transform the whole of society. It's not enough to just change your uni and that kind of thing.
Please, guys, support Suhaiymah and her friends by picking up a copy of The Fly Girl's Guide to University. I'm sure it's going to be an amazing read. You are listening to the Outspoken Podcast, and this is Content Junkie. Naeem, what are we talking about today?
So, guys, we're talking about a new film that's coming out on the 22nd of February called Cold Pursuit, featuring the guy you know.
Someone,
the guy you guys all know. Someone's been taken from him, one way or another. It's either his daughter
in every single film,
or his wife, or this time is his son. Now next time it's gonna be his dog, and
might be his gerbil next time. We don't know.
Do you know what I mean?
Something's gonna be taken.
Might be his toothbrush, might be his towel.
Guys, you already know who we're talking about. Liam
Neeson, guys. Liam Neeson.
I mean, the trailer itself. We'll start with that. Discussion.
Yeah.
Before we move on to something a little more deeper. I know Naeem's itching to speak about it.
Yeah, the trailer itself. Just watch it. Obviously, it's just an action movie, isn't it? Yeah, it's just pure action. So, from what I remember, all that happens is that you have Liam Neeson and he gets called up. And someone tells him that there's something happened to your son. Yeah, something happened to your son, and he finds his son, and his son's dead. And then he goes on. It's because he does it all the time. It's like someone it's like his son. Someone dies, Yeah, and it's just a whole movie about vengeance. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's not really much to talk about. Like I can talk about Taken and I can talk about the whole concept of Taken, and this will be exactly like it.
I genuinely feel like we could box all of his films into one package and just say that they're all on the same.
Exactly. Do you know what I mean?
They're all based on this idea.
Like I remember that there
vengeance
was
and revenge.
yeah. So like when there was that film where he was on the airplane. Do you know? I forgot what it was called.
I haven't seen that one.
There's one when he was on an airplane and he's like somehow he knows martial arts and stuff, and there's like these people that hijack the plane. Yeah, they hijack the plane and he's just fighting all these guys.
Sure.
Was it snakes that hijacked the plane? by any
No,
chance?
it's not. It's not that. It's not that. It's actually a movie where he's on the plane. I forgot what the name.
Joking. Oh, it reminded me of that film. Samuel Jackson.
Yeah.
Snakes on the plane.
No, but this film called Pursuit, in terms of like the intensity is do you know I can't say much because it's all the same. Do you know what I mean?
Like it's the same. Every single film of Liam Neeson,
Exactly.
for me personally, that I've watched, it just seems like a rehash of
Like
the
there
same
was free
concept
takings
over and over again. There's not much differentiation between the movies.
He's the same character in
plays
each
the
role.
same sort of character. You can tell that it caters to him as an actor.
Exactly.
And I'm not overly interested in this movie, if I'm
Yeah.
honest. I know we're supposed to be unbiased, but I'm not really a big on action films. But I think from the trailer, if you do like action films, there is enough to enjoy in terms of the action sequences. So Suhaiymah, I mean, are you interested in these sort of films?
I
by any
mean,
chance?
sadly, I am. I do love action films, but I think this film I will give a miss.
Yeah.
For reasons I'm sure you will develop. But yeah, no, I do. I'm quite up for a good chase and a good a bit of like violence.
Every time I watch this film, I just think back to Taken. I'm just like, what? How many Takens are we gonna have? Do you
Yeah,
know
to be
what I
fair, I
mean?
haven't actually watched any of him.
Oh, really?
I don't think I've watched it
He's-
because I think the premise, as you say, is quite boring.
Yeah,
I'm a bit like, well, I know
so
what you're gonna do. You're gonna go find.
There's 3 Takens.
Yeah, that's throwing
One
me.
time, the first time his daughter got taken. The second time his wife got taken. The third, I don't know what the third time is. I never watched the third one.
Is this the third time you're like, mate, you need to learn your
I watched the
lesson?
first
There's
one, I was
actually-
like, this is okay. The second one was like, this
Yeah.
is really poor. It's just the same film
It's just the same
again.
film.
I was like, I'm not watching
That's the
Taken
thing. If it
3.
had a twist or something, that'd be
Yeah,
okay. But
they actually made a series called Taken.
okay, that's
based on
extra.
Taken.
Yeah, they've made a
Oh my
series
God,
now.
oh, I
Yeah,
see,
they've
like a
actually
TV
made a
series.
now as well.
Series called Taken. It's not with Liam. I don't think it was with Liam Neeson. It
Thank
was someone
God.
else. But
To be honest, I feel that a lot of these TV series now are made to sort of feed off of the popularity of some of these films that at the cinema they may do decent at the box office. So these series are like, okay, we can maybe benefit from making something on the small screen, as they call it. I feel there's one specific film franchise called The Purge. I know it's a bit off topic, but I felt I'd mention it for one reason in particular. And The Purge is basically about a night where the government stop controlling the country, isn't it? You might have seen it. You can explain it a bit better than me because I haven't watched it for a specific reason. So
what The Purge is basically what they've decided is they've taken one night out the year where every law, like every illegal activity is allowed.
Yeah, and the reason why I mention this is because I think it's disgusting that we live in a time where people feel so comfortable with making content like this.
Yeah.
I mean, this literally glorifies the concept of being violent, murder, and without a lawless society, in essence. And they've made a TV series based off of that now as well.
Oh, wow.
And we live in I just feel like the time we live in, it's such desensitized content that people just literally aren't focused on the negative impacts of this sort of consumption for young people. Sorry guys for that tangent. I just felt impelled to I felt really impelled to mention the nature of content that we watched today to go hand in hand with our discussions earlier on regarding stereotypes and stigmatization, but also more to do with desensitization, which is what I think a lot of our issues stem from. I just feel it's important for us to remind the youth of the positive things that they can be involved in, the positive things they can be doing, rather than being just someone who's consuming all of this negativity from the media.
Yeah. I feel like I didn't answer that. Sorry. I feel like the moral of the story is Liam Neeson like make some better films. Like, you need to make some better films.
You need to make some better films
You
with
need to
some
be-
substance.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't need Taken 28. Like, I don't need that in my life right now.
Even more importantly than that, Suhaiymah touched on something earlier on about a discussion regarding Liam Neeson, and it's very interesting that in an interview leading up to this film, Cold Pursuit, he actually made some very ridiculous remarks. regarding black
Moving on
people.
to this right now, my bro.
We're moving on
We're
to
getting
this.
in this, yeah?
I think we need to. And you are listening to the Outspoken Podcast, and we're going to combine the two right here, Content Junkie and What's Happening. So, Naeem,
Wow. This is a
tell us
first.
what's happening.
What is happening, guys? So, linking onto the Cold Pursuit, Liam Neeson, during the week of the release, it was the release of the Cold Pursuit. It was released for Cold Pursuit,
It's
right?
for the premiere.
The
leading
premiere,
up to
sorry. The premiere of Cold Pursuit. My bad. He made some very racist comments.
Yeah,
I'm just gonna say racist
ridiculous.
comments.
Yeah,
And for example, one of the comments he actually made, which was. I think something happened to a certain someone.
Yeah.
I think that I think
He's like a
someone-
friend of
it
his.
was a friend of
To a
his.
friend of
Yeah.
his,
Something happened to his friend, a friend of his, and he literally said, "So I went out in anger to go kill a black person, basically."
Mhm.
Yeah, so he left, and because of that situation happened to his friend.
Yeah, the thing that happened to him was a black person had
Yeah.
done it, so he was like,
Yeah.
therefore,
Therefore,
I
I'm gonna
will
go kill anyone,
any
anyone
black
that's,
man.
that's
No,
black.
it was anyone that's black. And
Yeah.
and the ridiculous nature of his comments is that he mentioned if it had been someone from another place where the actual person is unrecognizable in terms of their skin color, he would have done the same thing, which is just stupid.
That is
Because how? So I'm trying to think of the places he mentioned. He mentioned a couple of different places. I think one was. It's like maybe Russian or something like that, or Lithuania or something, where you can't really
Well,
tell.
so he was saying like, if this had
He was saying
happened,
if it was a person from that place, I would have done the same thing. But it's like,
that's even wilder.
How-
It was just like,
He's-
even what?
but it was like, how is that?
So you understand-
How is that even possible when you wouldn't be able to tell?
Yeah.
Well, with a black person, you can tell.
Yeah, he's trying to
immediately,
pretend
you
it's
know.
not a racist
Yeah, he's trying to
trope.
cover
Yeah,
up
yeah,
the
yeah.
fact that it was a racist remark, and it's had a lot of different opinions and different responses from people within the celebrity world or whatever you want to call it. Some people have actually supported him and said, "Oh, it was very brave of him," and other people are saying he's absolutely.
Wait.
No, I'm dead serious. Some people
Nah.
are saying that he's brave for saying
That's
it.
brave.
I think
Serious?
even John
So-
Barnes commended him for
Nah,
it.
man.
Are you serious?
Football player John Barnes commended him for
Nah,
it, and
man,
while other
that
people
is-
are saying it's racist,
That-
which
that
is what
is-
it is.
Nah, but that is-
I don't know how you can commend someone for saying I would go out and I wanted to murder a black person.
That
because,
is not right, man.
Because a black person did something to somebody that I love. It's absolutely.
Well, I think he was
disgusting.
also getting commended because he apologized, right? And he was like, "Oh, I said it a long time ago." Da da da. So some people were like, "That's amazing that you've apologized," And some people were like,
that's
"That's
what we
yeah."
did. That's
you
what
know,
we did.
this
Thank
is
you.
the thing.
Oh my goodness.
If apologizing was easy, then everyone's problems would be solved, wouldn't it? Do you know
But this is
what I
the thing, like, because some people get to just apologize and it's done and they can carry on with their lives.
Yeah.
But there's other people of color, when they do something,
It
if
gets
they
hold to them.
apologize, that is way not enough.
Yeah,
But we
it
don't
gets
have
hold
that
to them
same
when they-
standard.
until they die.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, this kind of stuff gets hold to people and it attaches
Yeah.
people. People can't get like if something happens, one person does one thing, like their life is destroyed.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
exactly. They
Even-
hold them to it, don't
Yeah,
they?
but even going back to like sorry for going off a tangent, but like going back to the whole terrorism situation.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
That's what I
attaching
mean.
terrorists to Muslim and
Yeah.
you're Muslim, you can't get a job sometimes.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's unlikely for you to get a job. It's unlikely for you to go to places that are that attach that specific word to you, and not even like it doesn't have to be Muslim. They attach it. So like for example, they attach it to like just Asians. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They attach it to Asian. Like he's Pakistani.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm,
he must be one of the
Yeah.
Muslims.
Mm.
They don't even know you.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And that's it all goes back to that. So I feel like he because he said this and people are realizing, look, this what he said isn't right. You shouldn't agree with it, and you should be held accountable for what
Exactly.
you've said. You can't just say you can't. And you're he's in cold pursuit. Like now I understand the whole term. He's on cold pursuit. He's going out to find someone.
Oh God. Yeah.
This
Oh,
is. I guess this is where the concept comes from, isn't it? Because he went out in anger to kill.
Yeah, he did.
And he said it himself. I went out to kill a black person.
Well, that's why he brought up the story, isn't it? Because of what his film is about.
Right.
But I mean, to clarify, it's potentially possible that John Barnes was referring to commending him on the fact that he apologized, like you mentioned. But even with that being said, it's ridiculous that he felt comfortable enough to make those remarks public in the first place, to even have to deliver that apology.
But I think that's the key point, right? Is that like, because I think a lot of media outlets are trying to be like, oh my God, he's so racist, that's wild. But it's like, actually, guys, you also dehumanize black men all the time.
Exactly.
And this is a history of, particularly the trope of like, black man rapes white woman, therefore should be killed. That's what the history of lynching in America is.
Yeah.
And you're like, you can't just pretend that the media have nothing to do with dehumanizing. And you were saying, like, we see images of black people being killed all the time. We're desensitized to that. We don't care.
Yeah.
But it's like everyone wants to go, Liam Neeson's the odd one out. Why is he saying that? It's like,
Yeah,
guys, because you all say it all the time.
Exactly.
And as you say, it's because he felt comfortable to say it.
And with you just saying what you just said, I have to bring up one amazing, absolutely epic advertisement that I had seen recently. And it's similar in the sense that it's related to war-torn countries. So not necessarily black people in this regard, but it's related to people of color in war-torn countries. And in this advert, the protagonist is a young girl who is white. And it deals with what it would be like if these things that are happening abroad came and happened in the UK.
I think I've seen this.
And I think when I saw it, I was blown away. I was so moved. This video went viral. It's got millions of views, and it's unsurprising. Not surprising that it does so, because it was amazing, and it gives us an opportunity, I think, for people that are so ignorant or negligent towards these issues to actually stop and say, okay, wow, like, that's deep. If it did happen here, how would we react? How would we deal with it? Because on a daily basis, we get on with what we're doing and act like it is not happening abroad. So I thought that was amazing. I had to bring that up.
No, that's a good point, because what if Liam Neeson was a black Muslim and he had said, something happened to my friend, I went out and tried to kill any white man. He'd be arrested instantly.
Exactly.
You can't say that.
Exactly.
You can't say
Just
that.
like that. Oh,
Yeah.
the double standards is
It's
absolutely
crazy, man. Absolutely crazy.
sickening at times, to be correct.
Do you guys know about the Dole test?
The Dole
Dole
test?
test.
Oh, yes, I know exactly
Do
what
you
you're
know
talking about.
Well,
Yeah.
in the 1940s, the USA did a test when it came to ethnic minorities.
Yeah,
When it came
I
to
know
ethnic
what you're talking
minorities,
about.
so they got kids. Now in this test, they got kids to basically see two dolls. One's a black
the
doll, one's a white
dolls,
doll. Yeah, they got
yeah.
two different dolls, and they would ask them specific questions like, which one's the white doll? This one. Which one's the black doll? This one. Now, which one's the nice doll?
Yeah.
And the kids, the way, because like this is what I hate, because this is how the media has affected our young people, is that through imagery, through these cartoons, through the cartoons, through the news and all that kind of stuff, the way they've depicted these people, like for example, like going back to what Liam's the term all blacks are violent. So what? So when I asked him a specific question, which actually like hit me straight here, and I was like, which one is the bad doll? And the kids pointing at the black doll, and I was like, wow,
Yeah.
that's absolutely crazy.
Yeah. But you're right, it's not just the media as well, though. It's like subconscious messaging from the moment you were born in terms of like who gets certain benefits, who gets treated in a certain way. And I remember I've got a friend who teaches at a nursery, and she was saying that on one of the first days, like all the kids coming in, and this young, like 3 years old, how old are you when you go to nursery? Like 3. Little black boy comes in, and the teacher instantly goes, "Oh, I can tell this one's gonna be trouble." And you're like, that's so interesting that to a 3-year-old you've already attached you've like given a whole life trajectory. You've gone, I know exactly who you are, based on nothing, and you're like, that's not even the media. That's just people. That's just everyone's internalized it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, sorry, it's a bit down.
No, it's
Wow,
it's
no,
fine because
it's just something that when you hear these things, you just need to ponder, take a moment to just ponder and digest the way society is, and how much needs to be done for us to work together to change this way of thinking.
Definitely. Do you know? I remember I forgot this lady's name. It's like she's a doctor, and she basically does this whole test where she's.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Blue eyes
Do you know what I'm talking about, Liam? Where she switches, where she basically takes a group of ethnic minorities and a group of white people, and she gives the ethnic minorities certain rights.
No, so she splits it on blue eyes and brown eyes.
Oh yeah,
right?
blue eyes and brown eyes.
She
That's
goes,
it,
you
that's
get in
it.
groups based on if your eyes are blue
That's
or
it.
brown.
Yeah.
And now if you have blue eyes, you can't stand up. You can't, like, you have all these disadvantages. And she's like, how does that feel? Isn't that wild? And that's what racism is. And everyone's like, she also does this. Have you seen the clip where she goes, all the white people in this room, I want you to put your hand up if you would be okay to be treated as the black citizens in this country are treated.
Yeah.
And nobody puts their hand up. And she's
Yeah.
like, sorry, you didn't understand. Put your hand up if you are okay to be treated. If tomorrow you'd wake up and be okay being black. And no one does. And she says, that means you know exactly what is going on in this country. And you know exactly that you are
Who
benefiting.
is this lady?
I forget what she's
I
called.
would love to check that
Yeah.
video
She's
out.
absolutely amazing, man.
Yeah, we have to. Yeah,
It sounds really, really interesting.
Yeah.
I'd like
She
to check
does.
it
She
out.
does a lot of these tests.
She's
man.
very
She gets
hardcore.
a whole group of people, and like when it comes to like their rights on specific things.
Yeah.
And when I was watching that, because they got the brown eyes, the white,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
the blue eyes, and they switched it. Yeah. So they got like for example, I think it was one way she did with food.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think if I remember correctly, they got some sort of type of food.
Like better.
And they got basically the better food, and the other people got another set of food,
Yeah.
which is like decent, like a couple sandwiches and stuff.
Yeah.
So she's basically swapped. She basically gave those like certain what's the variables to them, and said, look, that's what you get. Yeah, and then the way the test work is that some of the blue-eyed people, they went mad.
They went,
They were like,
they were
no,
outraged.
I want that food.
Yeah.
I was like, they went, do you know what I mean? They went mad. They were like, no, you can't treat me like this.
Yeah.
And then they should like.
But I think there's a
but-
bit where she says like, this is literally a game and you can't handle it. Now
Yeah,
imagine
exactly.
if in the real world
Yeah.
you're a person of colour, like you can't. Yeah, how dare you get
She's
upset?
absolutely amazing, man. Because she goes straight to them. She's like, this is how they feel.
Yeah, it's really intense.
Now you know they proper intense. Some of them are crying.
Yeah, they are.
They're crying. Yeah.
I need to see.
And she- this is how
I
they
need to
feel
see
every
this.
single day, and they're not crying. This is how they feel.
This is the thing. Yeah.
After this podcast, you better send me.
I'm
these
gonna send you.
videos.
Don't worry,
I
man.
need to watch these
You'll
videos.
see it. You'll
I
definitely
need
see
to
it.
watch these videos. Before we move on, I wanted to ask you about another book that you've had some
yeah.
involvement in. You have written your own with some friends, A Fly Girl's Guide to University. I'm going to plug it again because I want you guys to support Suhaiymah and her friends and purchase this book. But also on the table, A Virtue of Disobedience. You have a
Yes.
poem featured at the start of this book. And this is
Yeah.
someone who is a very well-spoken and well-known individual, and he's decided to include your poem in his book.
Yes.
How'd that make you feel?
Yeah. So basically, actually, it was pretty cool because when I did the poem I did at the Roundhouse that I told you guys about, Asim got in touch with me. I remember he sent me a really lovely message, and he just said, I'm really annoyed because I've been trying to write a book for 3 months and you in 3 minutes have just said what I was trying to say in that book, which was obviously very generous of him. But he said I would love to commission you to write a poem for this book. So I got to read the book, and honestly, it was easy to write a poem. When you read a book, you know, sometimes you read something, you're like,
This is it.
this is
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
so easy to write about because it's so inspiring. And I had never read something where he uses Islam and he's like, you have to fight for justice if you're a Muslim. Like, it doesn't make sense. And he's like, you can't just. It's based, I think, at the beginning. He says like he went to like a sermon with his sons, and the imam, like the leader, was saying, you know, you must obey the laws of the country that you're in. You know,
Yeah.
be obedient. And he was like, hang on, because if you place obedience above justice, then you're going to start following all sorts of unjust rules and laws. And so this is a really, really cool, I think, really politically exciting, quite revolutionary book that he put forward. And yeah, so writing the poem for that was like, I felt very honoured because I really respected the argument a lot, and it really inspired me, to be honest. I try and think about it a lot in what I do, and try and think about where my intentions are coming from and what I'm doing. But yeah, I really recommend that if you want to think about how to be an activist.
You can pick up A Fly Girl's Guide to University and A Virtue of Disobedience now and enjoy some content from Suhaiymah.
Wait,
You know,
who is messing with
every
words?
episode we have, I mess up something. Every episode is like
That's
it's
good,
like
that's trademarked
my
now.
gimmick
That's
Yeah,
good,
it's
yeah.
like my
But
gimmick.
he's
I
a
mess up something.
he's a grammar Nazi though.
I get so frustrated even if I spell something wrong. Like,
Really?
5
He-
minutes
he
ago,
got-
and I realize I'm like,
Oh,
no,
wow.
I'm
He
so-
got angry at me one time because I messaged him. I didn't put a full stop at the end.
Oh wow!
Oh,
now I'm
what's
just
that?
like reflecting on the text that I might have sent you, being like, here.
Did I really get angry? I can't
You're
even
like,
remember.
you're like, now we need to put a full stop there. And I was like, what?
Wow. Okay. Noted.
Or like, no, it's not. I'll put like you are basically. And I
Yeah.
forget like the.
Oh no! I did. That's
dash.
what I said. I was
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
see you in a few. Like, see you. Oh no!
I'm
You
just
forget the little-
extra. That's what I'm just extra. That's what it is. I'm
And he'll just be
extra.
like, no name is spelled like this. And I was just like, what? And he comes on the podcast. He messes up like 8 words. I'm like, yo, that's.
You know how many
you're gonna
times
get it on you, bro.
somebody will correct me, right, and then a minute later make a mistake themselves, and I'm like, why did you correct me? And then you're gonna go and write like that
Come
immediately afterwards. Are you taking the mic?
That's funny.
I like, at least I'm consistent with the way I write. You are listening to the Outspoken Podcast, people, and we want to finish with something beneficial. So we're going to ask Suhaiymah if she has any advice for our listeners.
Oh, wow. Okay. Advice. I think something that I'm thinking about a lot at the moment is gut feeling. And my advice at the moment is listen to your gut feeling. Because I think gut feeling is actually something a lot deeper. And I think it is often like this place in which you are going to make the right decisions. And I think so often we don't follow the gut feeling because we're in a context where society tells us do this is what is beneficial, this is what will get you clout, this is what will, and there's all these other incentives. Yeah. But actually I think gut feeling at the end of the day is the thing that will keep you true to a very good moral baseline. Yeah. And I think and with that comes just checking your intentions all the time with everything you're doing. Because I think we really live at times, particularly with social media. I mean, my phone broke recently. Been the most liberating thing because I can't access any of my social media. And actually what I found is that when I'm doing things, I'm not thinking, oh, because I can put that on my story. Oh, yeah, because I'll tweet about that. I'm just doing it. And it actually means my intentions are so much more present and so much more genuine. Yeah. And I think social media really is, it can skew with us and like skew our ideas of what valuable is and what good is. So I really think just check in with yourself, check in with what you're doing and why you're doing it. Ask that question, why am I doing it? Because you could waste your life doing things for the sake of other people, to impress other people. And I really think instead if you ground it in what you need and what you want and what is right, you will end up living a more fulfilling life for yourself and for everybody else.
Yeah, I don't really have anything as good, I don't think. Actually, I've got something for you. Yeah? Believe in yourself. Believe in yourself. If you want others to believe in you, then you have to believe in yourself first. Keep striving with sincerity for what it is you want, and if it's good for you, I'm sure it will come. Thank you so much, Suhaiymah, for joining us on the Outspoken Podcast. Thank you. It's been a pleasure and excellent discussion. We can't wait for the next episode already. We're always looking forward to seeing who we can communicate with next. So guys, thank you so much for joining us in the Outspoken Podcast. I am your host Annotate,
and I am your co-host Just Naeem. Guys,
take care and have a good week.
I love you guys. Come back again. I want to miss you.